So today we're going to be taking a look at the Elgato 4Ks, and I'll explain why this might be the best value for money capture card on the market. Hey guys, what's going on? I'm Beatwalker and welcome back to another video. So Elgato is one of those companies that have done a really good job of curating products for creators over the past couple years, and capture cards is probably on the top of the list of products that they've come up with and have evolved through the console generation. So 4Ks came out a couple weeks ago, so I'm just getting around to making this video, and we're going to be taking a look at some of the recordings that I did later in the video, some of the software, and then just maybe a few things that could be better, but I think this is everything that you can ask for in a capture card for the price. Before we get into the overview and review, I'm just going to take a look at some of the specs. I'm going to compare it to the HD60X, which is last gen similar version to this, and I plan to compare these visually in a future video. So if you want to see that, be sure to subscribe, and I will have that posted along with a few other capture cards that I have, so you can just see some of the differences. I think the main things that people have been concerned about, especially over console generations and how they've progressed from 60 frames per second to 120, is pass-through. With 1080p on this capture card, you can get up to 240, which is really future-proofing the capture card because no consoles really do that right now. But there may be some handhelds that can future-proof this for you, or if you're doing some kind of different dual PC setup where you need that pass-through, that could work for you as well. And then 1440p, you have the 120, 144 as well. And then 4K is your 60 frames per second, which is pretty much most gaming consoles are basically stuck at 60. There may be a few games that can get to 120, but it's pretty rare right now for the current console generation. So that's nothing really to be too worried about. And of course you have HDR pass-through, variable refresh rate, yeah, and then your other features as well. So now for the capture, you do have HDR for capture as an option, but later on when we kind of go through the best settings for capture, HDR is kind of one of those where you really have to be careful with colors and how they come through with HDR. So we'll take a look at that, but HDR is an option if you know the right settings and you know how to make it work for you. And then you can capture 1440 up to 120 and 144 now. So capturing 1440 at 120 is really awesome, especially for like FPS games that you can have better slow motion without a lot of choppy frames in there. So that's really nice. And then also capturing 4K up to 60 now. So really nice features and upgrades over that last generation. So, and again, I did a bunch of captures and they came out really, really great. So we'll take a look at some of those. And then the connections, you have, of course, the USB-C 3.2, which is pretty much the current gen of USB-C. And then you can use this for Mac and Windows and iPad. I didn't test that, but I am on a Windows right now, so I'll be testing it with Windows. All right, so let's take a look at what's in the box. All right, so inside the box here, let's rip this wide open and pop this open. Put that to the side. Open this up. Open that up. And in here we have the device. This is a pretty sleek and lightweight device, similar to the HD60X, very lightweight. And then you'll have your HDMI in, HDMI out, and USB-C 3.2 Gen 1. So compatible with most USB-C 3 inputs and outputs. So we got this guy here. Some instructions there. And of course you have your cables. So you have a HDMI cable, and then you have your USB-C to USB-C. No adapter to USB or USB-A, but I would always recommend, if you do have a USB-C input, to utilize that, or if not, you can get an adapter and plug that in as well, as long as it's a 3.0 input. All right, so that's pretty much everything that is in the box. So the setup of the capture card is pretty simple. You'll either use the included HDMI cable to run from your console to the device, or you can run it from the device to your monitor or TV. And then you'll want to make sure you use that USB-C to plug into a USB-C port, preferably. So one of the problems that I've had in the past with capture cards or any kind of device, like especially a webcam, is plugging it to an external hub has always kind of been an issue. And I have a friend who, with the HD60X, had problems with it disconnecting, etc. So the hub that I've switched to recently is this Anchor USB-C hub, and I've had zero problems with previous capture card and this current capture card. And I'll show you, it'll be plugged into this the entire time. I'll show you how quickly it connects, changes with closing the program, opening the program. So I've had zero issues. But what I would recommend, if you do have a USB-C port on your computer or a laptop, plug it directly into there and you shouldn't have hardly any issues. But if you don't, then I would recommend getting something like this. I know a lot of hubs aren't great, so this is just the one that's worked for me, and I've had a lot of different hubs and some of them are just awful. But that's just one thing I want to mention, because I know it's important to always have that running and not have it be disconnected while you're gaming. So firstly, we're going to be taking a look at the Elgato Studio software, and as always, you can just go to Elgato's website, download it. Taking a look within Elgato Studio, this is essentially what you're getting. So you'll get the information for the capture card, which it does support additional capture cards within Elgato, so you'll see that there. You'll see the input source, which is from your console, capture device, and then output, and the various aspect ratios and FPS information that those are feeding to, and then your HDMI out, which is going out to your monitor or TV. So this will update based on you changing resolutions and then you changing FPS, and I'll show you what that looks like in a second. And then over here on the right, you have this. So video, basically like color ranges. I just leave this at audio, but you can change the HDMI color range there. And then HDR tone mapping, what it does is it basically turns SDR footage into HDR by adding specific colors to match HDR. Then you have your input settings. So basically it's whatever's coming to the studio. So you can actually customize this to a specific resolution, and then the audio range, so you can choose HDMI audio or analog audio. So if you're familiar with PS5, it basically splits the audio, HDMI, headphones. So what you can use is a chat link. I'll link that down in the description. The chat link will basically allow you to capture both game audio, chat audio, and you shouldn't have any issues there. Unlike the Xbox, if you just choose HDMI, you'll be fine. You don't need a chat link. So kudos to Xbox for being ahead of the game on that. PlayStation, please merge your audio or allow us to merge it. It's 2025. Also, Xbox, allow me to plug in a USB-C microphone. All right, so here we're within the options of the PlayStation. So what I'm going to do is, my monitor goes up to 1440p here. So we can I'll show you what that looks like when it updates. Let's open this up here. So it'll say detecting, then it's going to change it to 1440p SDR, right? And then it gives you the recording output. So if you click on this recording output here, you'll get some additional options, which is basically color scheme. So I just leave it to match my computer. And And then here you can get some update. If your capture card needs to be updated, you can update it here. Gives you the device information, and then the recordings. Leave the max resolution because you can change the resolution within the software. So you leave that, and then the path of where do you want your videos to record to. Pretty simple, basic stuff, but that'll give you that information if you click it there. All right, and pretty much, aside from the frames per second output, now this is a little different just because PlayStation, you have to be in a certain game to be able to record or to be able to output 120. So yeah, that will update once you get into a specific game like Call of Duty or Forza. I think it's another example. So there's certain games that will bring up the 120. So I just unplugged my monitor. So now I guess this is like an additional option you could do, because if you notice the website, it does say that you can basically play the game from when you're capturing. So if you want to do that, that's fine. Now the responsiveness is pretty nice. So you can see that I'm going up and down, and I mean it's 30 millisecond response time, so it's really quick. So in the past I've had issues with like delay on captures, and this is probably the quickest one that I've had. So that does work. And if you notice now, it's showing HDR up there. And then let's do, so it's back here. And then you could also tell the colors a little bit different, right? This is what I was talking about for the HDR colors. Now what I'll do is turn on the tone mapping here, and it's going to reset. Now the colors match what the HDR output should be, or very, very close. It is a little bit different, but for the most part, it can get you that HDR recording. So let's try and go to 4K here. All right. Okay, so now we're at 4K, 120. HDR is on. So I'm gonna test this by turning it off and on, so you can see what the color range looks like. So you see it there. Now let's go back. Turn this off. And you see these there. Now I turn this tone mapping off. Not gonna do much. There we go. On. Yeah. Essentially, you don't want this on when you're recording SDR. Now, if you can see there that this didn't update, so it's very rare. It usually does update, but probably still some things I need to update in the app here. But as you can see, HDR is off, and it is showing that it's on, but we know it's off because of the colors. So what I'll do is switch it back on, and you can see the colors are pretty much gone. So I'll switch this off. Still gonna show HDR, but I know the colors are good because I don't have HDR tone mapping. So just know that you are seeing SDR here and not HDR. So again, just one of those things that if Elgato sees this, then maybe it's something they gotta look at. So now I'm gonna go over to the Xbox. Okay, so now I'm over on the Xbox, and as you can see, I have it already at 1440p 120, which is pretty much where I game at for the most part. So this is ready to go if you're wanting to do 120, but essentially within the Essentially within the Xbox, this is what the settings look like. Lower this a little bit because it is too loud. TV display. If I wanted to go to 4K, I can, but 4K of course stops at 60, so 4K 60 it is. We'll pretty much keep it there for now. And then it tells you, you know, what your TV resolution output is rated up to. So a little bit more information on Xbox, and I kind of like the way their layout is set up. And then if I wanted to allow so here's where if I wanted to turn HDR on, I would. Like, so for example, right now we are just SDR, 4K 1 or 4K 60 SDR. Yeah, I say that out to say that if you're recording within this capture device or within Elgato Capture, I would pretty much always recommend SDR. And you're going to see why when I show you some of the clips that I recorded. HDR, again, the colors are not perfect. They're good, but the SDR is just way more pure. You're getting a lot better of the color ranges out of the box. So my advice is pretty much go SDR when you're recording, or even when you're streaming. That's what I would recommend. It just looks better. So like, let's open up Forza, and I'll just show you what that looks like and what a recording quickly looks like. All right, so I'm gonna mute the music here just in case, even though I really like the intro song on Forza. So again, I'm at 4K 60, so I'm just gonna hit record here. What I do like is that it tells you the file size building up as you're recording, which is really cool. So you can see if, hey, my file size is starting to get really big, or you have so much room. You can see that there, and you could stop it, maybe clear some room or whatever, because you don't want that to be an issue, especially when you're recording. So what I'll do is just stop it here, and then this bottom left corner, it pretty much puts it there right away, and you can go directly into it, and it's going to show up on whatever folder, and it'll be like the first one here, and you can just change the name like I did for all these other ones. So really cool, really easy functionality wise. And that's pretty much Elgato Studio and how it functions and what it does. So now let's take a look at some of the game captures. Okay, so my final thoughts on this are is it right for you? So I would say if you have a Xbox Series X, PlayStation 5, or the Nintendo Switch 2, and you're looking to upgrade from, let's say, a pass through of 60 hertz where you need 120, because we're trying to future proof things, and that's kind of what we want. This is probably one of the best options that's out there right now in terms of pass through and quality. Quality is extremely noticeable compared to the other capture cards that I've tested. The latency is pretty much zero. So, especially for streaming, like latency becomes important because then you have like delays and talking and stuff like that. I found like I pretty much have zero latency. Still need to look at a few things within the app, HDR settings, stuff like that. But personally, I had zero issues with recording. I know other people had issues with recordings and pass through being kind of choppy, but I think it had to do with Mac, if I'm not mistaken. So again, I was on a Windows, had zero issues. But yeah, there might be some future updates coming with the capture software. So would I recommend this? Absolutely. Um, it will be my daily driver. So if you're curious to see what that looks like live, I'll link my Twitch down below and try to get a stream or two once or twice throughout the week. And also, I'll be dropping some reels with different recordings and stuff like that. And I'll also be comparing this to the HC60X, maybe an NZXT that I have, and then like a budget version as well, just to give you like some different comparisons on what's best for you. But yeah, if you like the video, be sure to subscribe, and I will see you guys in the next one. Thank you.